In a secret, unknown place, two men are held captive. One man looks like a soldier with his military uniform, while the other man wears a simple tracksuit. They're not just any men, the one in the tracksuit is a professor. The soldier breaks the silence, saying he's sorry for their situation. But the professor isn't having it. He's quick to blame the soldier, saying this whole mess is his fault. The soldier's mind starts to race, recalling the series of events that got them into this terrible situation. He thinks about the person who gave them information, a double agent who set them up. They knew we were coming, he thinks. They knew our route, the time we would attack. It was a setup from the start. Just then, there's a noise outside the door. It swings open, and another soldier is thrown in. His name is Sergeant Kim. The first soldier, now visibly furious, stands up to insult the guard. The guard responds in a language neither of them understands and smacks the soldier on the head with a rifle. Through this brief exchange, they see the guard is of African descent, hinting that they might be in a war-torn African country. Sergeant Kim asks the first soldier, who he refers to as Lieutenant, if he's okay. The lieutenant says he is, and then asks about the rest of their team. Kim says they've been taken elsewhere. Suddenly, more noises come from outside the door, and it swings open again. This time, one of the guards falls flat, knocked out by a mysterious stranger who's standing behind him. Is Lieutenant Kang Ham-chan here? The stranger asks in Korean. The lieutenant can't believe his ears, the man is speaking their language. Kang asks who he is. The stranger simply says he's their ticket out of there. As they follow him through the labyrinth of hallways, they see knocked-out guards everywhere. The stranger has done this all by himself, which leaves Kang amazed. He asks the stranger for more information, like which division he's from and how many are with him. The stranger doesn't say much, only that he's working solo. Just as Kang is wrapping his head around this, another guard appears. He's reaching for his gun, but before Kang can even aim his weapon, the stranger takes out the guard with incredible speed and skill. The stranger tells the soldiers they need to move faster, and he'll handle the enemies. Though slightly annoyed, feeling like extra baggage, Kang agrees. They reach a corner, and Kang notices multiple guards are up ahead. He's going to need help, he thinks. But before he could even finish that thought, the stranger rushes ahead and takes down the enemies with what seems like supernatural skill. The enigmatic stranger continues to blaze a trail ahead, deftly and quietly incapacitating guards left and right. Kang, the lieutenant, can't help but be appalled. The stranger's methods are so ruthless that Kang labels him a monster. He's efficient, yes, but recklessly so, making it evident that he's not military trained. They finally break free from the building and reach the open air. Wait here for a minute, says the stranger. Confused but compliant, Kang notices his own men behind him, clearly out of breath, but also alive. It's another testimony to the stranger's keen awareness. Then Kang notes two things, the stranger's dark eyes and his slightly awkward but mostly fine Korean. Is he Korean? Before he can probe further, the stranger says their minute's up. Time to move. They reach a clearing and find the rest of their captured unit, all smiles and relief. Kang's men say that the stranger had freed them too and told them to wait here. The stranger then announces that their paths diverge here. Head southwest, and you'll find your people, he advises. Grateful, Kang offers a handshake. The stranger hesitates, just as a sudden explosion erupts from the bushes. Get down. The stranger yells, and the blast rings out. Stunned but alive, Kang realizes they were mortar rounds. He scans his surroundings, his men are safe, the explosion missed them. Then he hears gunshots and turns to see the stranger, surprisingly youthful in appearance, holding off their attackers. Fast forward 6 months. We're now outside a school. Inside a classroom, a teacher introduces a new student. It's him, the stranger, finally revealing his name, Yui Jin. In that same school, a girl sits deep in thought about her brother, a thought interrupted by another girl bursting in, gushing about a handsome new student. She instantly knows they're talking about her brother, the same brother she believed had died in a plane crash. Meanwhile, at an airport, we see Yui Jin again. Beside him stands an elderly man, his face crinkling as he weeps tears of joy, tenderly touching Ijin's face. As Dayun sits in her classroom, she can't shake the feeling that the new student might be her long-lost brother, Ijin. Just as she's pondering this, he catches her eye and graces her with a warm smile, whispering, "You must be Dayun." Her reverie is abruptly interrupted when a girl, clearly annoyed, confronts Dayun for ignoring her. The girl demands Dayun's gym clothes for PE later. When Dayun retorts that she'd have nothing to wear, the girl slaps her, revealing a history of bullying. Meanwhile, in Ijin's classroom, the teacher introduces him as someone who has been living abroad for personal reasons and asks the class to make him feel welcome. The girls are already smitten. The teacher directs Ijin to an empty seat. On his way, a guy in an orange tracksuit and red hair tries to trip him. Ijin's quick reflexes prevent the fall, and he shoots the would-be trickster a warning glare. In that moment, Ijin recalls advice from Lieutenant Kang. Kang had urged him to avoid fights, concerned not for Ijin but for anyone foolish enough to take him on. A combat-hardened pro, Ijin doesn't need reminding of the risks, but he heeds the warning all the same. The teacher, noticing the pause, questions why Ijin has stopped. Apologizing, he proceeds to his seat, ignoring the guy's taunt that he got scared. The student seated next to him, Park Yoon-chan, is tasked with helping Ijin adjust. Yoon-chan promptly warns Ijin about the guy, Lee Jae-hyun, and his buddy, Joo Hyuk-jin. Ijin thanks him for the heads-up just as the math teacher strides in to begin the lesson. Surveying his new environment, Ijin sees an eclectic mix of students, some napping, some giggling at their phones, and others clad in gym clothes. As Ijin gazes into the sky, a momentary flash of his grueling mercenary training flickers in his mind. This country is peaceful, he thinks, comparing it to the brutal past he left behind. When the school day ends, he waits by the gate for Dayun. Spotting him, she's taken aback but pleased. He suggests they walk home together, and she agrees. An awkward silence envelops them. "This must feel strange for you," Ijin breaks the ice. Dayun hesitates, admitting it's only a little awkward. He confides that he was just 9 when the incident occurred and barely remembers her or their grandfather. He calculates their current ages, 19 for him, 17 for Dayun, acknowledging that the awkwardness likely hits her harder. Their walk is interrupted when one of Dayun's bullies spots her. Nervous, Dayun contemplates her next move. The bully taunts, asking if Ijin is her boyfriend. Eager to dispel the idea, Dayun clarifies he's her brother. Ijin innocently asks if the girl is a friend, putting Dayun in an uncomfortable position. The bully bristles, challenging Dayun to confirm their friendship, visibly shaking her. Ijin's eyes narrow at the menacing group. One bully, irritated by Ijin's glare, moves in closer. "Trying to act cool, eh?" He snickers. Ijin observes his approach, careless, unarmed, full of weak spots. It puzzles him, how can someone so ill-prepared be so confident? He recalls Lieutenant Kang's cautionary advice and decides to let it go. But when the bully grabs his shirt, Dayun intervenes, bowing her head, and attributing Ijin's behavior to cultural unfamiliarity. The bully scoffs, "What's that got to do with me?" Ijin looks at Dayun, her face etched with horror. Enough is enough. In a swift motion, he jabs the bully's hand, letting his backpack fall. He approaches Dayun, instructing her to stay still and gently places his blazer over her head for protection. As the bully lunges from behind, Ijin's fist meets his face, knocking him out cold with one punch. The two remaining bullies are stunned by Ijin's swift action, while Ijin himself is frustrated for breaking Lieutenant Kang's directive on his very first day in school. Sweating and bewildered, the other guy can hardly believe what just happened. Meanwhile, in a military zone, Kang oversees soldiers' training. A soldier informs him that today marks Ijin's first day at school, mentioning they've prepared him for half a year. "He'll be fine. I trained him," Kang states confidently. Back in the heat of the confrontation, Ijin wastes no time. After knocking the first guy out cold with a single punch, he quickly turns to the second. A well-placed gut punch followed by a forceful throw over a small balcony leaves the guy unconscious. The girl bully is horrified. Ijin locks eyes with her for a moment, a deadly glare that makes her quiver. Are you surprised? He asks Dayun, suggesting they get some food to lighten the mood. She politely declines, still in shock over her brother's fighting prowess. Let's just go home, he says, and for a moment, his muscular frame, evident even through his school uniform, catches the eye of the girl bully. She can't reconcile the gentle brother with the fearsome fighter she just witnessed. On their way home, Dayun queries about the knocked-out bullies. Yes, I took care of them, Ijin confirms. Dayun chides him for staring at people, saying it might make them mad. I only did it because they seemed to be troubling you, Ijin explains. Dayun blushes, flustered and touched, leaving Ijin puzzled. At home, their grandfather insists Ijin not do the dishes but enjoy some fruit instead. Ijin politely declines, preferring to help with the chores. His grandfather hopes the meal met his taste, to which Ijin enthusiastically praises his cooking, clearly pleasing the older man. When asked about his first day at school, Ijin looks at Dayun and says everything was fine. Later in bed, Ijin reflects on his first day, how his grandfather warmly welcomed him home, the hearty meal, and the events that led to the confrontation. As he drifts to sleep, he dreams of a traumatic plane crash, envisioning his parents shielding him while the aircraft plummeted. He wakes up abruptly, grateful it was just a nightmare but aware that his new peaceful life has challenges of its own. The morning sun pierces through the curtains as Ijin steps out of his room. He spots Dayun bustling around the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Where's Grandpa? He asks, surprised when Dayun mentions that the old man has already left for work. Before he can probe further, Dayun hurries out, citing the need to get to school early. Ijin gazes at the leftover food on the table, remnants from last night's dinner. Meanwhile, the girl who had witnessed Ijin's recent display of fighting skills reports back to Heejin, the chief tormentor of Dayun. She warns that continuing to bully Dayun might not end well for them, especially with her formidable brother around. Yet, Heejin dismisses the caution, reassured by the thought that her own brother is a respected figure among the third years. At school, Heejin confronts Dayun with a vicious slap to the head. Demanding she follow her outside, Heejin proceeds to beat her up, taunting her that her brother's life won't be easy either. At that moment, Dayun bursts into Ijin's classroom, screaming for her brother. Her clothes are torn and muddied, her face bearing red marks from the slaps. When Ijin's eyes lock onto her, they turn predatory. Heejin's brother, in the classroom with his gang, scoffs at the scene. Heejin saunters in after Dayun, fueling the fire even more. The air thickens with tension, and by the look on Ijin's face, it's clear this won't end well for the bullies. Rewinding to a bit earlier, the classroom had its own drama unfolding. Lee and Ju, local troublemakers, were tormenting Young Chan by throwing erasers at him. When they demanded an even bigger eraser from a frightened classmate, they nailed Young Chan right on the head. Just as Lee readied another hefty throw, Ijin stepped in, intercepting the eraser with his backpack. Irritated, the duo decide that they'll settle scores with Ijin after school. Young Chan, grateful but still wary, asks Ijin if he has plans after school, offering to show him around. Ijin declines politely. I have to go home with my sister today, he says, casting a glance at Lee and Ju who seem to be plotting their next move. Did you and your sister transfer schools together? He asks. Ijin shakes his head. No, she was already here. Her name is Dayun. Hearing that name, Youngchan's face clouds over with a mix of panic and sorrow. Your sister's had a hard time at school, he blurts out. She's beautiful, which made her popular with the boys since middle school. There's this girl who liked one of those boys, and that's when the bullying started. Ijin's brows furrow in disbelief. And no one stepped in to stop this? He asks. Young Chan sighs, it's complicated. The girl who's been bullying Dayun has a brother, Kim Kisu, and he pretty much rules the third-year students. No one dares to go against him. Young Chan elaborates, revealing that the bullying escalated when Dayun found herself in the same class as her chief tormentor. It got so bad that people were amazed she was still coming to school, he says. Ijin tries to process all of this, baffled by how senseless the situation seems. Young Chan shrugs, once you know the facts, it's really not that special. Bullies don't need a reason. Memories flood back of a recent conversation with his grandpa, who had asked Dayun how her school life was going. She'd said it was fine, but the sadness in her eyes betrayed her words. Grateful for the intel, Ijin thanks Youngchan just as the classroom door slams open. In walks Kim Kisu, a towering figure followed by a motley crew of toughs. One of them is a guy Ijin had taken down at a store before. "What brings you here?" Ju queries, visibly shocked to see Kim in their classroom. "We're here for something, someone, actually," Kim smirks, his goons pointing at Ijin. "You lost to this guy?" Kim scoffs, eyeing Ijin's unassuming frame. Ijin stands up, locking eyes with Kim. "You're Kim, I assume?" Before Kim can respond, Dayun bursts into the room. Her clothes are torn, her face bruised. Ijin's eyes turn icy. "You're lucky to have such a loving sister," Kim taunts. Heejin, the girl bully, steps in saying, "I'd worry too if my brother were about to get beaten." Tears spill down Dayun's cheeks as she whispers an apology to her brother. "You have nothing to apologize for," Ijin assures her, before landing a devastating right hook on the goon closest to him. The guy crumples to the ground, out cold. Another thug lunges at Ijin, who smoothly redirects the punch to his windpipe. Gasping for air, the attacker falls to his knees. The remaining goon, now panicked, swings wildly at Ijin, leaving himself wide open. Seizing the opportunity, Ijin delivers a kidney shot, bringing the man down. The room goes silent. Ijin turns to his sister, his gaze softening. "None of this is your fault, Dayun," he says, his voice firm but tinged with a fierce protectiveness that leaves no room for doubt. "Anyone messing with his sister will have to deal with him. And dealing with him is a losing battle." The classroom falls into a stunned silence. Even Kim, the school's reigning tough guy, can't believe what he's seeing. Ijin's eyes are locked onto Kim and his sister Heejin, both visibly rattled. Kim tries a high kick aimed at Ijin's neck, certain he's landed a hit. But his confidence evaporates when he sees Ijin block it effortlessly. In a desperate flurry, Kim tries another kick, Ijin blocks that one too. Grabbing Kim's leg, Ijin lands a punch square on his face, sending him sprawling to the floor. With a final, bone-chilling look, Ijin takes Kim down for good. The room is electrified. Lee and Ju, the classroom bullies, are especially shocked. Ijin turns to Heejin, his fist clenched. She braces for impact, but Dayun intervenes. "It's enough," she pleads. Ijin protests, "Aren't these the people who've been making your life hell?" Dayun's face reddens, she's both embarrassed and guilt-ridden that her brother had to intervene. She convinces him to let it go, and they leave the room together. Back in their classroom, Heejin seethes over her humiliated brother and his defeated crew. As they walk, Dayun marvels at Ijin's fighting skills. "I'm sorry you had to fight because of me, again," she adds. Ijin reassures her, "Where I come from, it's every person for themselves, except when it comes to family." A memory flashes before Ijin's eyes, his days as a mercenary, witnessing a father bravely shielding his daughter. Dayun wonders how he can feel so strongly when he barely remembers her or their grandfather. True, Ijin acknowledges, "but I know we're family." Flustered, Dayun says she can make it the rest of the way herself. As she waves goodbye, Ijin can't help but smile at her adorable awkwardness. Returning to class, Lee and Ju congratulate him. "Man, you were smurfing out there," Ju grins. Youngchan chimes in shyly, "I thought you were pretty cool too." Elsewhere, Kim and his crew nurse their wounds, grudgingly admitting that Ijin is in another league. Heejin won't let it go, berating her brother until he's had enough. "Just shut up," he snaps. She storms out, tears forming in her eyes. When Heejin returns to class, she sarcastically tells Dayun that she's got it made now, with her big, bad brother, to protect her. But Dayun doesn't bite, she simply ignores her. For Heejin, that's the last straw. Her anger boils over, but this time, there's a sense of defeat in it. Meanwhile, Dayun heads for the school gate, her mind a whirlpool of emotions. Her brother had stood up for her, but does that mean her long history of being bullied is finally at an end? She's so lost in thought that she almost misses Ijin standing by the gate. "Penny for your thoughts?" he says. Dayun apologizes for being so distracted. We need to stop by the store, Dayun suggests. Grandpa likes to have dinner ready when he gets home. Behind them, Heejin's eyes narrow and her lips curl into a malevolent smile. She's clearly cooking up something nasty. Inside the store, Dayun can't help but notice how a pair of giggling girls are captivated by her brother's good looks. Ever had a girlfriend? She asks. No, Heejin replies, surprising her. But you're so popular, she exclaims. I've been busy, is all Heejin says. He returns the question. Dayun also has never had a significant other. When they return home, their grandpa presents Heejin with a new phone. Had to unbox it to put the numbers in. Hope you don't mind, he says. Dayun declines a similar offer, saying her current phone is just fine. That night, Heejin sits in his room, admiring his new gadget and thanking Grandpa, who can't contain his joy at Heejin's gratitude. He even sends a text to an old lieutenant friend, who questions why he needed a new phone when he already had a top-of-the-range model. The next morning, Dayun races out the door. I'm late. She calls out, mentioning she's left breakfast for him. As she runs, she reflects on why she's late. Grandpa loved her soup so much that she made another batch this morning. Lost in these warm thoughts, she's suddenly blindsided. A group of female thugs knocks her to the ground. Watch where you're going, one sneers. Despite Dayun's apology, she's slapped across the face. We're going to karaoke, and you're coming too, says a girl who, by her blonde hair, Dayun identifies as Heejin. Later, the karaoke employee notes how loud the girls had been, assuming they're just full of youthful energy. He opens the door to their room, and his face goes pale. Dayun is on the ground, battered and bruised. Dragging herself up, she refuses his offer to call for help and staggers out of the place, her spirit almost as broken as her body. Yet in her heart, a flame of resilience flickers. She's had enough, and things are about to change. School feels heavier than usual today, and the atmosphere in the classroom is tense. When the teacher calls out names for attendance, Dayun's absence is palpable. Heejin can't help but smile, a smirk tinged with malevolence. She knows exactly why Dayun isn't here today. One of her minions leans over, whispering, "You think we're going to be okay?" "Don't worry," Heejin reassures her, "Heejin will never find out we were involved." Meanwhile, Heejin stands at the school gate, his eyes scanning the crowd for his sister. When she doesn't show, he tries calling her, but the phone rings unanswered. Back at home, Dayun is curled up in bed, probably weeping. Heejin notices her shoes at the doorway, they tip him off that she's home. Knocking on her bedroom door, he's met with a frail voice that doesn't quite sound like Dayun. She claims she's not feeling well. Heejin hesitates but decides not to pry further. As he walks away, he notices something alarming, bloodstains on her shoes. His eyes narrow, frosty and cold. He barges into Dayun's room, first aid kit in hand. She's startled but tries to spin a tale about falling downstairs after dodging a bike. Heejin doesn't push it. He knows it's a lie but proceeds to clean her wounds. Dayun's mind drifts back to a time when she first experienced bullying. She had once accused Heejin and even called the police. But Heejin's mother had squashed her claims like a bug, even daring Dayun to call her parents. That memory still stings. Shaken from her reverie by Heejin's voice, Dayun realizes he's telling her she'll be uncomfortable for a few days due to her injuries. She notes his adeptness at first aid and worries how their grandpa would react. His heart isn't the strongest. Heejin promises to handle Grandpa and walks out. As he leaves, Dayun thanks him, relieved she hadn't told him the ugly truth. Kids like them were powerless, after all. Outside, Heejin's aura is dark and foreboding, a storm of impending violence. Elsewhere, in a dimly lit club, Kim and his thugs are nursing their wounds and their egos. "We can't let this slide," one mutters. Kim agrees but proposes they abandon the idea of a fair fight. Just then, Kim's phone buzzes. It's his sister Heejin. She fills him in on what she did to Dayun. Kim's eyes light up. "That works out, we were planning on making Heejin's life miserable too." Suddenly, a shadow materializes from the darkness. It's Heejin. Kim's startled but tries to mask it, mumbling something about a revenge match. But before he can even finish, Lee-jin springs into action. His moves are a blend of fury and precision. He takes down Kim's goons one by one, slamming heads to the ground, landing knockout punches, disarming attackers, each takedown more ruthless than the last. Finally, he turns to Kim, and for the first time, anger sears through his eyes. "Stay away from my sister," he growls. Kim trembles, weighing the enormity of the situation. His eyes dart to his fallen comrades, and it hits him, he's completely outclassed. How could he possibly take on someone like Lee-jin? Kim's face flushes red as he hurls an empty glass towards Lee-jin, missing him completely. In a fit of wild fury, he grabs a bottle, smashing it to create a makeshift weapon. But Lee-jin, unfazed and calculated, acts with lightning speed. He snatches Kim by the neck, choking him just enough to make a point. "This is your last warning," Lee-jin hisses, his eyes flashing a dangerous red. "Cross me again, and you won't like what comes next." Then, as abruptly as he acted, Lee-jin releases him, stepping back and exiting the bar. The crowd is left stunned, struggling to process the raw power they've just witnessed. Outside the bar, Lee-jin, Kim's sister, is pacing anxiously. She had a strange, abrupt call end with Kim, and her gut tells her something's wrong. As Lee-jin emerges from the dim stairwell, Lee-jin's eyes lock onto his. A bolt of fear strikes her, causing her to stagger back. She trips, her hand twisting painfully, dislocating with a snap. Just then, Lee-jin's phone rings. It's his grandfather. He leaves without another word. Lee-jin rushes inside, finding Kim a broken mess. She begins to berate him for his weakness when he cuts her off, roaring her full name, Lee-jin. "Listen, if you ever touch Dayun again, you'll have to deal with me." His voice drips with a promise of retaliation so strong that it leaves Lee-jin chilled to the bone. Meanwhile, Lee-jin sits with his grandfather on a quiet park bench. The old man is reflective, lamenting his shortcomings as Dayun's guardian. "I never really knew how to raise a girl, especially after we lost her parents," he says. "But Dayun has done more for me than I could ever do for her. She helped me survive the loss of our family." Lee-jin comforts him, saying, "Grandpa, Dayun loves you as much as you love her." The reassurance brings a sense of peace over the old man. Lee-jin vows to protect his sister at school, a promise that fills his grandfather with indescribable relief. Back at the hospital, the parents of Kim and Lee-jin are in a tense conversation with their battered children. Their father is almost dismissive, not surprised to see Kim in this state. The mother is furious, appalled at her husband's lack of concern. "Shouldn't you be angry that our kids got hurt?" she snaps. The couple departs, leaving the siblings alone. Lee-jin had told their parents that Lee-jin was the culprit. Kim, suspicious but desperate to believe her, accepts the lie. "Just wait," Lee-jin whispers as they leave. Lee-jin has no idea who he's messing with. In another corridor of the hospital, the parents continue to discuss the situation. The mother reveals she's already contacted the school's chief, a decision that only annoys the father. "Let the school handle it," he grumbles, rounding off a day of painful lessons and uneasy alliances, a day that promises more dark clouds on the horizon. Mom's voice is tinged with exasperation as she argues with Dad. "You don't understand the kind of man the chief is," she warns. Unbeknownst to them, Lee-jin eavesdrops from a distance, her eyes narrowing. Meanwhile, at a construction site, the chief, a burly man with a menacing aura and dressed in a sleek black suit, stands in quiet annoyance. "Why did I have to get involved in kids' nonsense?" he mutters to himself. Back at home, Lee-jin is lost in thought, wondering if the saga is finally over. That hope is dashed when he hears the door. Two muscular men are asking for him. Grandpa, perplexed, watches as Lee-jin calmly tells him that he knows these men and will be right back. Bewildered, Grandpa watches him leave. The goons escort Lee-jin to a warehouse. "He came without a fuss," one reports to the chief, who signals to get on with it. One of the thugs grabs a bat. "Hold his arm," he instructs his companion. "You shouldn't have messed with those kids," he adds, a statement that irks the chief but enlightens Lee-jin about the situation. Unexpectedly, Lee-jin disarms one thug with a rapid movement and takes down the other with an uppercut. The third, snapping out of his shock, lunges at Ijin from behind, only to be thwarted by 2 swift elbow strikes. Down he goes. The chief sizes up Ijin. You're not just a high schooler. A high-stakes battle ensues. The chief is fast, but Ijin's swifter, dodging blows and parrying attacks. Who are you? The chief demands. Just a normal high schooler, Ijin replies, his eyes unyielding. A punch from the chief comes rocketing in, only to be skillfully redirected by Ijin, who then counterattacks, leaving the chief floored and unconscious. The chief's last thought before blacking out is, these kids picked the wrong enemy. At a downtown building, Ijin's parents anxiously await news. Mom glances at the clock, puzzled by the long delay. Finally, the phone rings. Dad picks it up, only to hear an apologetic chief on the other end. I failed, he admits. The color drains from Dad's face. For the chief to be beaten, it means the opposing force was formidable, someone even the underworld would hesitate to mess with. The atmosphere grows tense, pregnant with impending turmoil. Both families are now locked in a dangerous dance, the stakes higher than ever, and no one, it seems, is willing to back down. The door creaks open and Ijin steps into the room, startling everyone inside. Unbeknownst to them, he's already dealt with the guards outside, neutralizing them silently. The chief's call ends abruptly. He senses that Ijin has already arrived. Ijin springs to her feet, shocked, prompting her mother to launch into a tirade against Ijin. But her father silences her, looking at Ijin curiously. How did you get in here? Ijin's reply drips with sarcasm. Well, there were guards outside, he says, prompting the father to rethink what he knows about the chief's capabilities and loyalties. Fed up, the mother grabs her phone to call the police. You know who you're messing with? She spits out at Ijin. Ijin can barely contain her glee. Ijin calmly replies that he's well aware, her husband is a 2-time congressman gearing up for another run. But then Ijin plays his trump card. He takes out his phone and starts playing a video. It shows Ijin bullying and stealing from another student. Instantly, the mother hangs up her call. How did you get this? Ijin stammers. Ijin coolly informs them that he's been gathering footage from surveillance cameras, stored safely on a memory stick. Ijin turns to her father, begging for support. But he's had enough. Ijin adds that he's got similar footage of Kim, Ijin's brother. So, what will it be? The mother hisses at Ijin, as if challenging him. But Ijin is unflappable. He also has footage from the warehouse, he tells them, effectively painting them into a corner. Surrendering, the father offers to pay medical expenses. Ijin declines. An apology from his children? Ijin would rather bite her tongue. No, Ijin has a different demand. Both Kim and Ijin must disappear from his sister's life. The father agrees to move them overseas. Ijin bursts into tears. The father asks for the damning footage, but Ijin's eyes flash a warning red. Do you think I'm an idiot? The father quickly apologizes. Back home, Ijin's family rushes to greet him, their faces lined with worry. Grandpa admits he thought the men from earlier were dangerous. His sister, Dayun, adds that they seemed off. How are you doing now? Ijin asks her. She replies that she's fine, puzzled when Ijin says she won't have to worry about falling downstairs anymore. Ijin knows he's eliminated one significant threat, but in his eyes, the battle is far from over. For now, though, his family can breathe a little easier, oblivious to the complex web he's navigated to protect them. The sun shines on a new day at school, and Ijin and Dayun chat outside her classroom. You don't have to walk me to class anymore, Dayun assures her brother, mentioning she's almost fully healed. With a nod, Ijin watches her enter her room. Inside, the buzz is all about Ijin and her brother leaving for an overseas transfer. Dayun pieces it together, recalling what Ijin had said. She rushes back to the hall, sees Ijin, but can't find the words. Ijin simply smiles and says, "See you later," leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. Cut to a local karaoke place. Ijin's friends chatter, speculating whether she's really moving abroad. Attention turns to Iyun, Ijin's classmate. It must be true, she's not responding to anything, Eun says cautiously, wondering if Hee-jin is behind this. Just then, Hee-jin bursts in, surprising the gang. I'm leaving for 1 semester, she declares, convinced her father will smooth things out. It's a family matter, not because of Hee-jin, she adds. One friend inquires about Hee-jin, Hee-jin dodges the question and suggests a final plan to torment Daeun and her grandpa. Just then, a masked figure appears, it's Hee-jin. Having an interesting conversation, are we? He taunts, reminding them that they're all featured in a video where Daeun was beaten. Faces blanch in terror. Aren't you going to play some music? He asks, and with a sinister smile, he closes the door behind him. Meanwhile, at the hospital where Kim is recovering, his parents query him about Hee-jin's whereabouts. She went to say goodbye to her friends, he replies. That's when one of their aides flips on the TV, revealing a news story that shows footage of Hee-jin and Kim's atrocious behavior. Hee-jin has released the videos. Their parents are horrified. Outside, the chief confronts Hee-jin. Why'd you do it? Didn't we have a deal? The chief is agitated, but Hee-jin is calm. Given their parents' political stature, he felt he had to resolve this discreetly. I guess I'm a twisted person, Hee-jin retorts. The chief warns him that the congressman won't let this slide. But Hee-jin has the upper hand, he's gathered incriminating evidence against the congressman himself, fraud, money laundering, and solicitation. So serious are these allegations that even his own party members are clamoring for an investigation. The chief slumps onto a bed, his face the epitome of defeat. Hee-jin's chess game has played out just as he intended, and has left his opponents with no moves. As for his family? They're the victors, even if they never fully understand the labyrinth he traversed to secure their safety. The chief scratches his head, puzzled. Is Hee-jin really just an ordinary high school kid? He wonders aloud. The next day, Hee-jin finds himself staring out of a school window when his phone buzzes. It's a message from his sister, Daeun. Go have some fun today, I'll head home on my own, she texts. As he ponders what fun might mean, his friend Young-chan pops up, inviting him to hang out after school. Just as Hee-jin agrees, Lee and Ju saunter over, their eyes probing. Did you have anything to do with sending Hee-jin and her brother overseas? Lee asks, skeptically. Rumors say you waltzed into Kim's base and cleaned house. I don't know what you're talking about, Hee-jin replies. Despite his denial, Lee and Ju invite him to join their clique. Hee-jin declines, mentioning he already has plans with Young-chan. Their gazes turn icy as they look at Young-chan. Well, why don't we all hang out then? Lee suggests, and Hee-jin feels a shiver go down his spine. What are they planning? Just then, the teacher walks in, introducing 2 new students, a gorgeous girl and a dashing boy. Young-chan whispers to Hee-jin that the girl is Shin Yuna, the granddaughter of the owner of SW, the country's biggest corporation. The boy is Go Suk-ju, her bodyguard and secretary. Lee and Ju grimace, more competition. As Yuna and Suk-ju take their seats, Hee-jin locks eyes with Suk-ju, an electric tension in the air. Yuna notices and asks Suk-ju, is he a celebrity? Suk-ju shrugs, promising to find out. After class, Young-chan suggests going to a PC cafe. Hee-jin recalls his past training about these places, led by some lieutenant. He even remembers learning about coin-operated karaoke. Young-chan, noticing Hee-jin's hesitation, worries he doesn't like the idea. Meanwhile, Yuna sits alone, gazing out the window. Suk-ju informs her about Hee-jin, mentioning how odd it is that he's suddenly reappeared, just as they've arrived. I'll dig deeper, Suk-ju vows. Walking home later, Hee-jin checks a group chat. It's from the day's gaming session, and Lee is praising Young-chan's skills. Flashback, it turns out Hee-jin is terrible at video games, but Young-chan is a whiz. What rank are you? Lee and Ju ask, to which Young-chan humbly replies, Challenger. Their faces go pale, treating him like a deity. Lost in the chat, Hee-jin nearly crashes into Daeun, who's exiting a store. What did you get? He asks. Garbage bags, she replies, we ran out. He offers to carry her bags, but she declines, saying they're light. Ijin continues on his way, pondering the day's events, new classmates, Lee and Ju's mysterious invitation, and Youngchan's gaming prowess. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he's also thinking about Yuna and Suk-ju. Who are they, really? And what might their arrival mean for him? His life, it seems, is becoming more complicated by the minute. As Ijin walks through the front door, Dayun looks up, curious about his day. I went to a PC cafe, he shares. How was school for you? It's been good. Comfortable, finally, she replies, grateful for the peace that settled over her school life recently. Did you have dinner yet? She asks. When he says he's only eaten a bit with friends, she insists he join her and Grandpa for dinner. Over a meal, both Grandpa and Ijin lavish praise on Dayun's cooking skills. You're getting better every day, Grandpa beams. As Ijin savors the normalcy of family time, memories of his harsh past intrude. Later, in the solitude of his room, his phone buzzes, it's his lieutenant. Any problems? He asks, his voice tinged with concern. Ijin hesitates, worrying the lieutenant into thinking something disastrous might have happened. No, Ijin assures him. Just a small issue. Fixed it. The next day, Ijin's friend Youngchan is engrossed in a heated discussion with Lee and Ju about who'd win in a fight, Suk-ju or Ijin. Suk-ju is on another level, they argue, recalling tales of him single-handedly fighting off 30 people. The consensus is clear, Ijin wouldn't stand a chance against him. At school, Ijin and Suk-ju finally meet face-to-face. Suk-ju interrogates him, fishing for inconsistencies in Ijin's story. The school you claim to attend, no one like you was ever a student there, Suk-ju declares, leaving Ijin speechless. Meanwhile, in a school break room, Dayun and Yuna chat. The topic inevitably turns to Ijin. Yuna is surprised to hear that Dayun has a brother. We thought he'd died 10 years ago with our parents, Dayun shares. 6 months ago, we learned he was alive. We flash back to a tearful grandpa breaking the news to Dayun. Yuna listens intently, growing increasingly skeptical. According to Dayun, Ijin lost his memories, conveniently only to regain them recently. Your grandpa must be so happy, Yuna finally says, smiling. But then her expression turns serious. Have you done a DNA test? She probes, making Dayun uneasy. I mean, you're sure he's really your brother? We must have had a DNA test before he came back, Dayun replies defensively. Besides, Grandpa says he looks just like he did as a kid. But why are you suddenly so interested in Ijin? Dayun asks, suspicious now of Yuna's motives. Yuna just smiles, leaving Dayun pondering the growing complexities of her family life and the enigmatic people now in her world, especially Ijin, whose past seems more like a puzzle with each passing day. Caught off guard by Dayun's probing questions about her newfound interest in Ijin, Yuna quickly changes the subject. Does Ijin have a girlfriend? She blurts out. Meanwhile, Suk-ju's confrontation with Ijin echoes in her mind. Despite his thorough research, Suk-ju found that Ijin's prior school had no record of him. No evidence, just smoke and mirrors. Ijin throws Suk-ju off by asking for hard evidence. Why are you digging into me? He asks. Suk-ju finds Ijin too enigmatic not to probe. You're a mystery, he replies, admitting he has no solid proof, but his gut tells him something is amiss. Ijin just shakes his head. I came back home, that's my objective. Nothing more, he declares. Suk-ju's suspicion lingers, vowing internally to find out whatever dirt he can on Ijin. In class, Ijin marvels at how much they've pieced together about him in just one day. As school ends, Lee suggests another round at the PC cafe. I can't today, it's my grandpa's birthday, Ijin declines. Ju decides they'll just go as a trio, hinting that they've warmed up to Youngchan. Suk-ju briefs Yuna on his findings, speculating that Ijin might have taken down Kim's gang to protect his sister, Dayun, from being bullied. It's almost fairy tale-like, Yuna remarks, enviously contrasting it to her own cutthroat siblings. They both agree that if Ijin were really plotting something, he's been far too loud about it. When the subject of an insurance payout comes up, money that Grandpa saved but promptly handed over to Ijin upon his return, Yuna's eyebrows arch. Is that his real objective? And what about Dayun? She's living under the same roof as him, she wonders, worried for her friend. While shopping, Dayun awkwardly asks Ijin about his life after the plane crash. Noting his sudden change in expression, she withdraws the question. Ijin brushes it off, citing language barriers and trauma as excuses for his mysterious absence. It was a busy life, he says, attempting to lighten the mood. Dayun then drops the bombshell. Yuna asked if he had a girlfriend. Ijin is taken aback. Interesting, he thinks. That evening, they celebrate Grandpa's birthday. As Dayun gifts him a simple phone case, Grandpa's voice quivers. The biggest gift is having you back home, Ijin, he says, visibly emotional. Just then, Dayun's phone rings. It's Yuna. She's invited Dayun to meet her at the convenience store. She's got something important to say. Ijin's alert levels max out. He senses that something significant is about to unfold. As Dayun steps out to meet Yuna, their conversation steers towards studying abroad. I can't leave Grandpa alone, Dayun says, but it's a bit easier now that my brother is back. Yuna's face clouds with indecision. All the information Sukju shared, the suspicions about the forgery of documents, weighs heavily on her mind. She contemplates whether to shatter Dayun's newfound peace by revealing everything she knows about Ijin. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Dayun cherishes the time she's spending in deep conversation with Yuna. It's been ages since she's had a heart-to-heart with anyone. Nearby, Ijin notices the two friends engrossed in talk. He starts to approach, but Sukju intercepts him. Let them catch up, he advises. Just then, a van speeds into view, striking both men and sending them sprawling.
When Ijin looks up, he realizes, to his horror, that the van has abducted Yuna and Dayun. Wasting no time, Ijin bolts, but the van is too fast, disappearing into the distance. Sukju, just as dazed, is caught off guard when Ijin grabs him by the collar. Who took them? Ijin demands. Sukju, confused, wonders for a split second if Ijin had a hand in this. Realizing the absurdity, he makes a quick call, detailing the kidnapping. Ijin tries to break away, but Sukju stops him. Are you involved? He asks. I don't have time for this, Ijin retorts. I have to find my sister. Meanwhile, in a plush office, a woman who bears an uncanny resemblance to Yuna receives news of her kidnapping. Pensive, she contemplates whether her grandfather should persist in challenging a rival company, knowing it might cost Yuna her life. Elsewhere, Ijin crashes into another office, confronting a man known as Cha Dusik. Surprisingly, Dusik knows him. He's a formidable figure in the criminal underworld. I need information, Ijin cuts to the chase. The SW Group CEO's granddaughter was kidnapped today. Dusik is taken aback. We didn't do it, he says hastily. That'd be suicidal. Then who? Ijin insists, my sister was taken, too. Hearing this, Dusik relents. He's heard rumblings of a non-Korean group asking for warehouse space, vehicles, and manpower. He declined their offer, but another group in Incheon agreed. Put your number in this, Dusik says, handing over his phone. I'll call you if my people find anything. Ijin quickly requests his motorcycle parked outside. Sukju, who followed him, questions the wisdom of chasing after such sketchy leads. Yuna may be safe, but I can't say the same for Dayun, Ijin replies. Sukju was struck by Ijin's swift judgment and resourcefulness. With no time to waste, Ijin mounts his bike and revs the engine. As he speeds down the open road, each mile covered brings a mixture of hope and trepidation. Dayun stirs awake in a dim room, disoriented. Beside her is Yuna, who apologetically admits that Dayun has been caught up in something dangerous. Just then, their kidnappers walk in. Yuna boldly demands to know their intentions. You don't need to know. All will be over soon, one of them grumbles. And what about her? Another inquires, nodding at Dayun. Dispose of her. She's of no use, the first replies. Yuna goes ballistic, threatening to kill herself if they lay a finger on Dayun. When one kidnapper challenges her resolve, Yuna bites her tongue hard enough to bleed. The kidnapper concedes. You win this round, he mutters. Meanwhile, Aijin and Sukju arrive at a warehouse, information from Dusik having led them there. As Aijin heads straight in, Sukju advises waiting for backup. But Aijin is resolute. Dayun's safety can't wait. Silently, they incapacitate a few guards. Sukju marvels at Aijin's ease with this kind of work and asks him again who he really is. Just your classmate, Aijin replies, his eyes burning with urgency. In another part of the city, the CEO of SW Group learns about the kidnapper's demands: cancel a new business venture, or Yuna dies. A clock is ticking, backup can reach Yuna only in 50 minutes. The CEO is visibly shaken. Back at the warehouse, Aijin and Sukju continue their rescue mission. 2 more guards are taken out effortlessly, raising their total count to 14. Sukju admits he's taken down 5, amazed to realize that Aijin handled 9 by himself. Who are these people? Sukju wonders. The ones who took Yuna are probably the real threat, these guys are just filler, Aijin assesses. Both are nursing injuries from their earlier encounter with the speeding van. Sukju's arm is in bad shape, and Aijin's leg isn't much better. Despite this, they don't have the luxury of time. Another group of guards discovers their fallen comrades, but it's already too late. Aijin lunges, landing a powerful knee hit, and incapacitates another with a series of quick jabs. Every second counts, and there's no turning back. Aijin knows that he's racing not just against the clock, but against a threat that's frighteningly unknown. Yet what drives him is abundantly clear: an unyielding resolve to save his sister, Dayun. Sukju watches, still not fully comprehending who this classmate really is, but recognizing the undeniable fire in Aijin's eyes, a fire that says he'll stop at nothing to protect those he loves. Sukju shouts out to Aijin, promising to apologize later for having investigated him. As the noise from outside gets louder, the kidnapping gang's boss senses trouble and sends his men to check it out. They stumble upon Aijin, thinking they'll dispose of him quickly. Aijin's eyes lock onto them, sizing them up. Meanwhile, Sukju finds his way inside and reaches Yuna. How many reinforcements do we have? She asks. Before he can answer, the gang's leader and his sidekick appear. You've been a real nuisance, always hanging around Yuna, the leader sneers. Then, as if to prove the point, his sidekick lunges at Sukju. The ensuing fight shows that Aijin was right, these aren't run-of-the-mill thugs. They're skilled and brutal. Sukju manages a few good hits, impressing the boss. But then, the tides turn. The sidekick pulls a knife, slashing Sukju 3 times. Weakened and bleeding, Sukju can barely defend himself when the boss hurls a knife toward Dayun. Yuna tries to shield her, but it's Sukju who takes the hit, the knife sinking into his lower back. Idiot, the boss chuckles, ordering his men to finish them off. Just then, the door creaks open. Aijin stands there, all the goons outside taken care of, his face a mask of unwavering determination. At Dusik's headquarters, an underling questions why he aided Aijin, especially with the Gozeon faction likely behind the kidnapping. The man's sister got kidnapped. What choice did I have? Dusik says, shrugging. Back in the warehouse, the gang's boss finds out that Aijin is Dayun's brother and scoffs at the notion of a family rescue. Dayun screams at Aijin to leave, warning that it's too risky. Yuna feels guilt-ridden, lamenting that 2 innocent lives are in peril because of her. Having lost enough time, the boss orders his sidekick to eliminate Aijin first. But Aijin's lightning-fast reflexes turn the blade back into the attacker's own arm. Close your eyes, Dayun, he murmurs. She obeys, and Aijin proceeds to incapacitate the attacker by precisely targeting his muscles and ligaments. Sukju, watching this, marvels at Aijin's expertise with a knife. He's not one of ours, the boss finally admits, noting Aijin's exceptional skill and the result in his eyes. Aijin doesn't care who recognizes his skills or questions his motives. For him, it's not about proving a point or settling scores, it's about something far more primal: saving his sister, come hell or high water. His eyes meet Dayun's once again, and in that brief moment, everything else fades away. The tension in the air was palpable as the gang leader unsheathed a knife, much larger than Aijin's own blade. He lunged at Aijin, who deftly dodged the attack, setting off a fierce exchange of blows. With a quick palm strike, Aijin halted the leader's advance, causing him to stagger back. Wasting no time, they locked in combat again. Within seconds, Aijin managed to slice the leader's arm multiple times, leaving him to wonder if he'd met his match in knife fighting. Aijin capitalized on the moment, slashing the leader's arm once more before delivering a kick to his face. The impact knocked off the leader's mask, revealing his twisted expression. Enraged, the leader pulled a handgun, aiming it squarely at Aijin. But before he could pull the trigger, Aijin's knife flew through the air, embedding itself in the leader's torso. A final, decisive palm strike from Aijin neutralized him for good. Yuna and Sukju could only watch in awe and a tinge of fear. Turning to his sister, Dayun, Aijin softly told her it was safe to open her eyes. His smile was a mix of relief and love. He'd come to save her, and he had succeeded. Dayun gently touched Aijin's face, asking if he was hurt. Overwhelmed, Aijin assured her he was fine, even as she broke down in tears. At an SW-owned hospital later, Aijin waited outside a door, presumably for Dayun's checkup to finish. His phone buzzed with texts from his school friends, lifting his spirits momentarily. Glancing around, he noted the sign Mental Health Institute. Memories of the harrowing night flashed through his mind. The kidnappers were now behind bars, but the emotional scars remained. Yuna approached, suggesting that Dayun might need psychological care, especially given her past issues. When Dayun emerged, saying she only needed weekly visits, a wave of relief washed over everyone. Still, Aijin couldn't help but wonder about the emotional toll all this had taken on his sister. Dayun seemed to read his thoughts but hesitated, as if realizing she couldn't question him about his mysterious past and combat skills. Meeting up with Yuna again, they discussed their respective medical visits. Dayun reassured her that constant apologies were unnecessary, subtly breaking the tension. Yuna's guard locked eyes with Aijin, his gaze filled with unspoken questions. Next, they visited Sukju in his hospital room. As Dayun expressed her gratitude, Sukju downplayed his efforts, insisting it was no big deal. Yuna and her guard observed the interaction from a distance, captivated by Aijin's capability. As they left the room, Yuna's guard couldn't help but marvel at how someone so young could single-handedly neutralize multiple attackers. Yuna seemed less sure, prompting her guard to start explaining, but his words trailed off as they both knew something was exceptionally different about Aijin, something that defied easy explanation. As Aijin and Dayun walked home together, the air was thick with unspoken emotion. Dayun broke the silence, thanking Aijin for his relentless help. Aijin brushed off the gratitude, saying he owed her more thanks than she realized. For the first time in his life, he felt what it was like to have someone genuinely worry for his safety. Dayun had given him a sense of family he never knew he needed. In a high-rise office building, a woman with ties to Yuna praised Sukju's swift rescue efforts, seemingly envious of Yuna for having such a capable person by her side. Her subordinate mentioned a rumor. It was actually a classmate of Sukju's, none other than Aijin, who'd done most of the heavy lifting. The woman found herself intrigued, especially upon learning her own grandfather might be involved in the unfolding drama. Alone in his room, Aijin relived the intense moments from the warehouse, each detail a reminder to train harder. Interrupted by Dayun calling him to the dining room for some fruit, he paused to check in on her well-being. She assured him she was fine, and told him he didn't need to worry so much. Dayun sensed his hesitation, guessing he was afraid she'd probe about his combat skills. She assured him she wouldn't question his past, just as she'd never been able to disclose her own bullying experience to their grandfather. Their conversation was interrupted by a call from Yuna, inviting Aijin to a nearby convenience store. Upon arrival, he noticed her increased security detail. Clearly, she was taking no chances. They sat down, and Yuna got straight to the point. She apologized for entangling Dayun in the chaos, but also expressed her gratitude toward Aijin for his heroic actions. Aijin replied curtly, saying he'd done it solely for Dayun's sake. Yuna acknowledged this, but still wanted to express her thanks. She also assured him that she'd cease all investigations into his background, something that made Aijin's eyes grow noticeably colder. "You have to understand, I had to look into you," Yuna added, trying to justify her actions. "You were a new variable in an already complex situation. But after what you did, it's clear you're more than capable." It was then that Aijin realized how complicated the webs of their lives had become, each of them linked in ways they were still discovering. Yuna had her problems, he had his, and yet, in that moment, it wasn't Yuna's gratitude or promise to halt investigations that occupied his thoughts. It was Dayun's simple, uncomplicated smile, the one that told him he didn't have to be a mystery or a warrior to be a part of her family. That was the thought that warmed him, even as the late evening chill began to settle in. Aijin had just stood up to leave when Yuna stopped him, mentioning that her grandfather wanted to meet him, to thank him in person. Aijin brushed off the idea, saying he never intended to be a hero in the first place. As he walked back to his house, he stumbled upon one of Dusik's gang members. The guy was bloodied and bruised, and he blamed Aijin for it. The Gozeon clan had figured out that Dusik had helped Aijin and had retaliated by raiding Dusik's hideout. Inside that hideout, Dusik was backed into a corner, surrounded by Gozeon gang members and their leader. Dusik mocked them for being too scared to face him alone, even though he knew they had the upper hand. The leader was fuming, ordering his thugs to tear Dusik apart. Dusik handled them skillfully, dodging their attacks and taking them down one at a time. But then someone cracked a piece of wood over his back. Although Dusik disposed of that attacker quickly, he realized the odds were stacking up against him. As he fought, he couldn't help but wonder if Aijin had managed to save his sister. Outside, Aijin arrived on Dusik's motorcycle. One of the Gozeon lookouts started to berate him but got a swift kick to the chin for his trouble. It seemed Aijin was there to save Dusik, after all. He made quick work of the other thugs outside and then, enveloped by an eerie red aura, walked inside. A group of goons spotted him and warned him to get out, but Aijin knocked one out instantly. The others charged at him, but Aijin dodged and parried, rendering all but one unconscious. The last guy tried to escape, but a flying kick from Aijin took him down too. Meanwhile, Dusik was running out of steam. He fought valiantly, but the sheer number of foes was wearing him down. One of the gang members offered him a chance to surrender, promising to treat him well. Dusik grinned, a twisted smile that unnerved everyone. He said they should go until the end. Just then, a commotion reverberated through the building. It was Aijin, who burst into the room like a force of nature. Dusik looked at him, puzzled, and asked why he was there. "I just came to return your motorcycle," Aijin said nonchalantly. At this, one of the Gozeon leaders laughed, commanding his men to mess up Aijin too. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Aijin had faced kidnappers and trained soldiers, and he was not about to back down now. In that room, full of tension and hovering on the edge of violence, it was clear that the fight was far from over, but its tide was about to turn. Dayun and the others prepare to leave, promising to wait up for Aijin. When Dayun questions if he's joining them, he replies that he'll catch up after swinging by their home. She senses it's because of her. "Look, it's broad daylight. You don't have to be so protective," she says, adding that she's turned down Yuna's offer of a bodyguard. Aijin relents but assures her that he enjoys their walks and will continue to join her from time to time. As he steps outside the school, Aijin spots Yuna's cousin, who's been waiting for him. She proposes a dinner to express her gratitude. Aijin declines, saying Yuna's thanks were enough. Annoyed by her persistence, he walks away, leaving her flustered. Meanwhile, at the PC cafe, Youngchan and Lee face a predicament. While heading to the restroom, Youngchan bumps into a bully who readies to slap him. Lee steps in, his fierce look enough to make the bully retreat. They return to their PCs, but the bully reappears, this time with reinforcements. They demand a showdown outside. Youngchan feels guilty, thinking he's the cause of the escalated tension. Lee, borrowing a line from Aijin, reassures him, "It's not you, it's them." The skirmish ensues, with Lee and Ju handling the bullies quite well until one manages to land a hit on Lee. Youngchan intervenes just in time, mustering all his strength to land a decisive blow, setting up Lee to deliver the knockout kick. Just as they think it's over, Aijin texts them, asking their whereabouts. They meet up, telling him about the epic 6 vs 3 they were embroiled in. But upon entering the cafe, they find a group of guys sprawled on the floor, defeated by Aijin. "I guess my school uniform ticked them off," Aijin says, looking down at the fallen troublemakers. Everyone gazes at him in awe, realizing that behind his quiet demeanor is a force to be reckoned with, and perhaps a mysterious past yet to be revealed. In that moment, each understands that they've all got each other's backs, forming a bond that feels unbreakable. And for Aijin, it's more than just friendship, it's a taste of the family he's never had.
Hey, freaking sweetie. You should totally hit that subscribe button for the YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying? Subscribe.